Let's welcome in GOP Congressman Mo Brooks from Alabama. Congressman, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. Again,
my pleasure.
Absolutely. We heard from the president yesterday. It was around 3 p.m. Eastern, so no primetime address, but he also didn't take any questions. He spoke about the withdrawal. He declared it an extraordinary success, and then he went on to blame former President Trump for all that went wrong. I want to play this sound, and then I'll get your reaction. Here's the president.
My predecessor, the former president, signed an agreement with the Taliban to remove U.S. troops by May the 1st, just months after I was inaugurated. It included no requirement that the Taliban work out a cooperative government arrangement with the Afghan government. But it did authorize the release of 5,000 prisoners last year, including some of the Taliban's top war commanders, among those who just took control of Afghanistan.
So President Biden called the mission a success while also blaming former President Trump. What are you calling it?
Well, if to Joe Biden this is a success, I shudder to think what a failure may be, because it couldn't have gotten much worse than it occurred over the last couple of weeks. Let's be real clear. President Trump wanted us out no later than May the 1st. That date is important because December, January, February, even March, bitterly cold in Afghanistan, much less fighting activity occurs during those months. That would have been the time to withdraw, where the Taliban would not have been able to move its forces as quickly as it did. However, this president bypassed that deadline, did not withdraw our forces at the most opportune seasonal time. Instead, he decided to withdraw our forces during the fighting months, so to speak, during the summer, which is the absolute worst time to enable the Afghan government to prepare and defend itself from the Taliban. That was all Joe Biden.
Yeah, and of course, he is the commander-in-chief. He's the one making the final decision there. At this point, we don't know an exact number of how many Americans remain, although perhaps it could be 100 or 200. There are reportedly thousands of Afghans left in Afghanistan, but President Biden says they don't really want to leave the country. Take a listen to this.
Most of those who remain are dual citizens, long-time residents who had early decided to stay because of their family roots in Afghanistan. The bottom line, 90% of Americans in Afghanistan who wanted to leave were able to leave. And for those remaining Americans, there is no deadline. We remain committed to get them out if they want to come out.
Congressman, what about those remaining Americans? Have they contacted you or fellow Congress members about trying to leave the country?
We have had a few that we are in contact with. I infer that that's the same with congressmen all over the United States of America. Of course, it's very difficult under these circumstances because the United States of America's presence is minimal, if not non-existent, in any military force capability. Let me phrase it that way. And so we'll see how all this plays out. Time will tell whether these American citizens want to stay in Afghanistan or want to leave. Time will tell whether the president is telling the American people the truth. I anxiously await more information that either confirms or rebuts what the president of the United States is leading the American people to believe.
There was a very tragic situation at the Kabul airport last week, which killed a suicide bomber, which killed 13 U.S. service members. What are you and other GOP House members, maybe Freedom Caucus members, doing to hold those responsible to account?
I believe we need a thorough investigation in order to ensure that we have factual information about what our intelligence community was telling the White House, what our Secretary of State was telling the White House and telling the military to do, what our military leaders were telling the White House to do, what the discussion points were, and what caused Joe Biden to make so many bad decisions. At that point in time, some heads need to roll. People who are responsible for this debacle, they need to resign. If they have honor, they'll do so on their own. If not, say with respect to the President of the United States, if he's primarily responsible for this ineptitude and this loss of life, then I hope that Kamala Harris will invoke the 25th Amendment, because quite frankly, in my judgment, Joe Biden no longer has the mental acumen that he once had. It's unfortunate, but it's clear that his mental status has deteriorated somewhat, rendering him less able to evaluate the myriad of facts that come to you, sift through the good and the bad, determine what is good, and make a rational decision. I suspect to some degree the president is being misled by his advisors, but we need a thorough investigation. And to date, it seems that the White House and the administration is trying to suppress and obfuscate rather than reveal with clarity what actually transpired. There's a lot of covering up.
Again, calling for a thorough investigation. I'd like to switch gears slightly with you, Congressman, running short of time, but the House Select Committee on the events of January 6th, they wanted telecom companies to preserve records of communications of, among others, members of Congress. You tweeted this out, responding, saying, "Socialists and Pelosi Republicans, Cheney and Kinzinger, seek my phone records. 3 results, total waste of taxpayer money. 2, boredom for who looks at my records. 3, Russian collusion hoax 2.0. Why not subpoena socialists who support BLM and Antifa?" Clearly laying out your 3 points there. Congressman, would you hand over those phone records?
Absolutely not. There are private communications between my wife and I. What right does this Gestapo, KGB-like entity have to investigate the personal information and communications of myself with my family members, my grandchildren, things of that nature? If it's limited to information related to January 6th, well, there's not anything there that I'm concerned about. But I don't want them getting their hands on internal campaign communications involving my candidacy for the United States Congress or for the United States Senate. I don't want them getting their hands on private, personal text messages amongst my family members. They have no business getting that kind of information, and I really hate the idea that they're trying to turn this into a police state. Now, I can understand the socialists doing it. I don't get Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney going along with this. They ought to resign from this committee, or if not, resign from the GOP conference, one or the other.
You mentioned, again, private conversations, phone calls with your wife, text messages with family. Would there have been any with other fellow Congress members or the president himself, Donald Trump?
Well, there weren't any text messages that I can recall with the President of the United States. Certainly, I communicate with other congressmen on a regular basis. Now, did it relate to the attack on the Capitol? No, but that seemingly is what they want. I haven't gone over those text messages, but I assume that on one side or the other, there are probably some caustic words used to describe what is happening in our country, particularly with respect to the Joe Biden administration or Nancy Pelosi. But those are private communications. If it relates to the Capitol and the attack on the Capitol, that's one thing, but there's not anything there. So I'm not at all worried about that. But I don't believe that they should be allowed to go on a fishing expedition, a witch hunt, a star chamber, whatever you want to call it, expedition, where they're just trying to go after 10 congressmen without following the Fourth Amendment probable cause requirements, and that's wrong. Right. We have rules and laws against unreasonable searches and seizures, and by golly, they have to come up with some evidence, some proof, some probable cause as a basis for engaging in this kind of expedition, and they haven't because there's not anything.
All right, we got to leave it at that. Out of time, Congressman Mo Brooks joining us live on the program. Congressman, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.